Hi, welcome to Lead with a Coaching Mindset. Today, we're very lucky to have with us Bill Thompson, the President and Head of Growth for Young Storytellers. And I had the opportunity to meet him several years ago, and we worked together. And he's also one of the contributors of my book, Lead with a Coaching Mindset. Some of his experiences and stories are sharing in the book. So I want to thank you for accepting the invitation to be here with us today, and we are going to be focusing on leadership presence and how we need to be present when we're having conversation with our colleagues to be more effective. So, for people who do not know you, Bill, what would you like to share about you?
Well, I live in Los Angeles, and I have the pleasure of leading an organization called Young Storytellers. We inspire young people to discover the power of their voice by mentoring them to write their own original stories and then see them brought to life and celebrated in their community. And I've been here for almost 20 years now.
And we have the opportunity to work with your team and support them in being more effective as coaches, coaching the people that they were working with, their clients. For you, as a leader, you were always committed to be a more effective coach. So when we talk about coaching presence, what's come up for you? What do you think are some of the challenges for current leaders to have that level of presence? And when we're talking about presence here, we're talking about being the here and now versus having our heads in other places, or like there is so much in our plate that most of the time we are with a person but our head is somewhere else, our mind is somewhere else. So how do we bring ourselves to be present and focused and paying attention to the person we have in front of us?
Yeah, I think it's more difficult now than it's ever been because I think that the amount of distractions that we have, the amount of ways that people can contact us and
Mhm.
communicate with us has proliferated so much, especially since COVID. So, not only is there texting and there's also email, but now there's Slack and then there's notifications from Asana. And, there's all of these digital tools that we've adopted to become more efficient, but I mean, I think the price for that is our attention. And so I think it's, I mean, one of the things that we've done here at Young Storytellers is we try to only have electronics in meetings if we need to use the electronics in meetings. Otherwise, the electronics go away. We put the computers away. We have, especially at our all team meeting every Monday, which is everybody, it's really a phone-free space. Like everyone is really just there present, even though we may have some people that are zooming into the meeting. We have a big Zoom board that we use. So we're not doing it on individual computers. We're all sitting around in a circle in the office so that we can be present for each other. I think presence is a big part of our culture. We do a lot of, we do a check-in. We start every meeting like that with a check-in where we ask a question and everyone goes around and answers that question. Like yesterday, it was just what's something that's bringing you joy? And so we spend 15 minutes just sort of listening and being present with each other about what is bringing folks joy before we get into the agenda of the meeting, which I think helps with presence. Sometimes we'll do a mindfulness exercise, we'll do chair stretching, we'll do something that also makes us feel more grounded. We're at our core, we're a lot of arts people. We do arts education. We all had arts experiences. I used to be an actor. There are a lot of theater people here. I think a big part of the theater is listening. So I've always felt that it's actually something that I'm strong at is the ability to be present with someone, to listen to them, and to be curious. I always sort of want to know more. And I know you and I talked a lot about this with coaching. I'm always curious about what's underneath. Um, so even though this drives my teenager crazy, I do ask a lot of questions. Um, I think my teenager wants to tell me what he's going to tell me, but I do think in a professional setting, a lot of question asking and then just listening. And I still, I think about a lot of the skills that you taught us about, what else?
Mhm.
Is there anything else? Silence, sitting with something and letting someone complete a thought, um, are all tactics that I use. Um, and I have to say that I feel more energized as a leader and as a person after I've spent time being present with somebody. Um, the days that I feel most exhausted are the days where I'm on the computer all day. I'm going from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom. I'm keeping inbox zero. I'm answering Slack. I'm trying to fit work in. At the end of those days, my head is buzzing. I feel like I'm part machine.
Mm.
But the days where I have the luxury of spending time one on one with folks, especially in person, um, I get energy from that experience, and I'm less tired as a leader.
It's interesting that there is a connection between being present with how we listen. We're covering in this podcast different competencies that leaders need to show to be developing this coaching mindset. And when you're talking about being present, a lot of these examples were related to listening, how you are
Mhm.
listening, and your curiosity. So we cannot listen if we are not present. Or many times, one of the challenges that I heard from leaders is that there is so much on their plate and there is so much pressure and stress in the job that stopping and paying attention to the person in front of you can be challenging. So, what helps you to remind yourself to do that? What helps you to, when you are having a conversation, you're talking about being curious, what else remind you to be there versus taking your mind to other places, what is so easy to do?
Well, I think that something that helps me do that is to be intentional about creating the space. So I will struggle, and we have an open floor plan. So I'll struggle if I'm in the middle of something and someone just comes up and expects my presence.
Mhm,
Because typically I'm in the middle of something and I'm very destination
mhm,
focused. I'm very task oriented as a person.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so, in order for me to create that space,
mhm,
I need to feel as if I've finished the thing I was doing.
mhm,
So, typically, what will work for me is let me finish the thing I'm doing. Can we connect in 15 minutes or can we connect in an hour? Which gives me the time to be able to finish the thing that I'm doing. And then I can show up in a way that's present because otherwise I'm going to be I know myself well enough to know I'll be half stuck in the task that wasn't finished. And I either need to finish it or I need to be okay with the fact that I'm not going to finish it right now. But I have to have space to do that before I can provide that space for another person. Um, I think something else that helps is, and sometimes this is, sometimes this is difficult to manage because it takes so much time. But I try to start interactions just meeting someone where they are as a human being. So even if we have an agenda of professional things that we need to get through, I still want to know like, how was your weekend? What's going on? I want to circle back to something you told me you were excited about last week. I'm interested in figuring out where they are in the moment and connecting with them as a human being before I get into work. Sometimes, though, because I'm curious, I can spend half an hour doing that, and it isn't the most efficient use of time. And so I've tried to get better about checking myself on that of like, you know, setting a limit of how deep I go personally because or even talking about things that are
mhm,
happening in my life. I think it helps with my relationships with folks,
mhm.
but it can take a lot of time.
And it's an investment that you are making to connect with them
Yeah,
to the extent that you spend that time, that you are genuinely curious and interested, because it
yeah,
doesn't work if you are not. If you are not, does not work. But if you are, you're sharing that in some way, you're showing that you care
that's right.
as a person, not just as a worker, but as a human being. And I do believe that this is one of the things that I learn in my training when I train leaders, and I have them think about the leaders that you respect the most, people who make a big impact in your life. all the time. People are saying the leaders care about me, not just as in for my job, but who I was as a person. They care about my personal life. So I do believe that what you're sharing, even though it takes time, it really creates a context for a relationship and a work environment that supports people to get engaged, collaborate, participate, be motivated. So at the end of the day, you may feel, oh, I maybe spend too much doing that, but it's an investment in the relationship.
I think that's true. I think it's a very human instinct to want to be seen.
Mhm.
And I think that as a leader, we forget our positional privilege.
Mhm.
And I forget this all the time. Like I feel like I'm the most approachable person in the world because I feel approachable. But
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that folks, especially new folks to the organization, perceive me in that way. And so it is important to send that message and set that expectation consistently that I do have an open door. I am here to, I am a safe person to talk to and explore challenges or difficulties or failure with. But I do think that that starts with sending that message of like, I care about you as a human being.
Mhm.
But again, I think so much of that comes from, I feel like I grew up in the theater, and the theater is a very collaborative place. And everyone there has a role, and everyone's essential to the thing happening, and everyone is sort of like equally respected. And even though there's a director or there's a playwright or there might be the star of the show, everyone's essential. And I feel like that something I'm proud of Young Storytellers is I think that is the culture that we've
Mhm.
created here, which is a culture that I enjoy and that I thrive in. So it is fun to see other people thrive in that same culture.
And it's a very collaborative culture
Yeah.
where everybody collaborates and participates and feel valued. It's another way people want to be seen, wanted to feel valued
Yes.
and also listened to.
Yeah.
And I think that this is one of the ways that people disengage from their jobs is when they feel that their leaders are not paying attention to them or not listening to them or not feeling valued. Have you heard, Bill, that people leave their not their jobs but their bosses many times?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, the flip side of that
Mm-hmm.
is that, sometimes it can be difficult to figure out a structure for making decisions, right? Like we've had to balance that over the years of, well, everyone has a voice, but we don't make decisions like a democracy. Everyone doesn't vote on every decision, right? So there's a balance between folks providing input, but then there are decision makers in the organization that consider the input, but then have to make a decision. Um, but I do think that when you over index on the input seeking, people are typically more comfortable with whatever decision is made because at least they express themselves and they feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if, as a leader, you explain the rationale behind the decision, even if the decision is contrary to what, you know,
Mm-hmm.
someone felt or someone thought the organization should be doing. Um, yeah.
So, what would you say, Bill, that would be some of the tips or suggestions you may have for other leaders? We were talking before we started recording the podcast today that you find valuable listening to other leaders from previous podcasts.
Yeah.
For the leaders who are going to be listening to us, what would be some of the tips that you would say as a summary of our conversation today that you wanted people to pay attention to enhance the quality of the relationships, to enhance this leadership presence? What would be some tips, some ideas that you suggest?
I think actually being intentional about creating the space to be present, um, and being transparent about it. So I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders to say, okay, this is a space where these things will happen, and I'm committed to putting my phone aside. I'm here to be present for you. I think naming the thing
Mhm.
helps. It's so important to be explicit.
Hmm.
Um, I've learned over years because no one can see inside your mind or your heart.
Yeah.
And so even though you think, and I get tired of hearing myself say things, I think, oh, people must be so tired of hearing it. But people need to hear those things, I think, to trust them or to believe them. Especially, I mean, you still have to back them up with actions, but I think it's important to say, this is why we're doing this. This is the space we're creating. And I think the other is to make sure that in those sessions, as a leader, the focus is not, it's not that you go in without an agenda, but the
Hmm.
focus has to be the other person then.
Yeah.
If you're actually listening, you need to be willing to deviate from your agenda, or your agenda needs to be uncovering something in the other person to be able to provide that space. Um, so I think it's making sure that you're centering the employee, the partner, the board member, the donor, I mean, whomever it is that you're
Mhm.
spending time with, that they are the center and focus of your attention, not your agenda. And then
Cool.
obviously the last piece would be like deal with the technology, right? If you're going to be disrupted by your watch vibrating or your phone vibrating or your email, like then figure out a way to either, put things on silent, turn your notifications off, shut the laptop, whatever you need to do in order to be fully present. And I would say that's especially true when you're on Zoom because it's so easy to see all of those red notifications start popping up and everything else. So I think it takes a level of discipline with your technology to make sure that you can be fully present and focused.
And it's about managing distractions. How do you manage distractions? And if you cannot be 100% present, what do you do? Like, for example, sometimes when I am coaching clients, something happened and I realize something happened in my environment at home. And sometimes I have to say, okay, I need to stop because I
Oh,
need to resolve something. So I stop and then I go and I do whatever needs to happen, whatever is happening in the context where you're working. And then I come back because I found out if I don't do that, I cannot be present to the
sure.
conversation because my head is thinking
Yeah,
something else. So I think that is also big when you're talking about being intentional, is when we're having conversations to plan, to be present, to manage distractions, but also to set up for being present. And if we cannot, because there is something else going on, sometimes we need to be also strategic and intentionally, maybe moving a meeting or changing the time, just to realizing when we cannot be present, how this is affecting. And that's also at home, how we are or not present to our loved ones. Many times people come to talk to us and our head is somewhere else. And if we do not communicate, if we not don't let them know that our head is somewhere because we need to solve something, they don't have a crystal ball. People don't cannot read our minds and know that we are concerned or worried about something else, and that's the reason why we cannot be present to them.
that's right. And people are very forgiving, I find, if you are just honest and transparent about that. So if you
Yeah.
say, I need to finish this thing that I'm working on so I can be fully present and give you the attention you deserve, but I need 30 minutes to do that. It's very rare that someone's like, well, that's not okay. They understand it because you're being honest. Their feelings get hurt when you um don't express that, or you pretend that it's not true, or then you act irritated or like you don't have time. You're sending all these other signals. So yeah, I think that transparency is super important. I mean, even you're right, the personal life. I mean, when I'm home, there are times where I have to put my phone in the other room to be present with my children. Um, and so that I'm not a hypocrite when I'm telling my teenager to get off his phone
Yeah.
so that he can
This
be
is
present with me. Yeah.
this is an interesting for a different program, but our relationship with our cell phones. Like
Yes.
when I do leadership trainings and I ask people to let go of their phones, they cannot engage in conversation during the meeting. People get crazy.
Yeah.
They don't like it. And I understand sometimes you may have emergencies, but also what is the sense of emergency? What is really an emergency? Do you have somebody who is sick at home?
That's right.
That's an emergency. Other things. I don't know. It's different for each person. But also we not sometimes need to let go of the phones just to be present with other people. And sometimes may or may not be possible, but when it is possible, I highly recommend people to disengage for a few minutes from their phones so they can be present to connect to other people.
Yeah.
Bill, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your support over the years, your support with my book. And I hope you can make our launch on September 2nd.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's my pleasure. I've learned so much from you over the years that have helped with, my leadership and my ability to coach and be present to folks, and which again, I think culture is everything. And so I'm proud of being able to have taken those skills and put them into practice here with your help. So thank you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Great to hear that.